then I went to 2 fashion shows in Milan, which were the first time I ever went to fashion shows. And I sat there and I was like, this is the worst thing ever.
There's a reason why most of the general population don't watch fashion shows all the way through. Hell, I mean, there's a reason why most fashion fans aren't sitting down to watch a full collection video. But the fashion industry found a solution for that. Make it a spectacle. Make the video so outrageous, so crazy that whether or not you're into fashion in the first place, you want to watch the video. And I mean, you know what these are. It's all stuff like the Coperni spray-on dress from last season. That was a viral moment that apparently performed so well for Coperni online that they made the runway gimmick a central part of their brand. They followed it up next season with a choreographed runway performance that involved models walking alongside robotic projects from Boston Dynamics, the company that famously released their own viral video prior to either Coperni moment. But before we start talking about runway gimmicks in depth, we need to establish a competent definition for what runway gimmicks actually are. Definitions are really important so that you can have productive conversations, but we're going to do it the fun way, which is with examples. If you have an entirely fashion-based feed like me, you probably couldn't help but see the AV, or AVAVAV, where the whole thing was just wardrobe malfunctions the whole time. And this looks mega staged in the video, but according to folks that were actually there, this was super convincing, and most folks thought, at least for the first few looks, that things were actually going badly. We have fashion runways that seem like they're built for TikTok, like Sunny's show where the models all crowd surf. Heliot Emil recently set a guy on fire halfway through their fall 2023 presentation. When I spoke to Julius Jewell about this, he said that he noticed that attendees do kind of start looking at their phones and kind of zoning out halfway through the presentation, and so he wanted to have kind of a way for them to wake up. Virgil Abloh created these huge costume-like recreations of city skylines that got a ton of intense reactions from Twitter and Instagram. We have brands like Unrealage. Really, we don't have any other brands like Unrealage. They're kind of unique. Anyway, Unrealage, they're a Japanese fashion house, and they recently featured clothes that could take on new colors and designs when exposed to UV light, even down to tiny details like the changing of sunglasses and lipstick. A lot of times designers will create these kind of viral moments through carefully coordinated celebrity appearances. Schiaparelli incorporated celebrities into their runway show using a strategy that's actually now pretty standard for larger houses. They get the celebs to wear the current collection that's about to be shown in the runway itself. And can we just take a quick detour to talk about something really funny that happened here? So Kylie Jenner wore the lion head thing. This was part of the runway that was about to be shown. And for Kylie, this is just showing up to work. Okay, so she got a ton of backlash for wearing this because everybody was like, this is encouraging big game hunting and like lions are endangered. How dare you? And then the president of PETA, a famously strict animal rights organization, came out and said, y'all know these are not real lion heads, right? I just thought that whole exchange was pretty funny. In terms of more celebrity stuff, Tom Brown had a recent Men's Week show where everyone was already seated, and then once the show had actually started, a number of women pretended like they were running late. I was actually at this runway show, and I was seated right behind where one of these women was going to sit, and I remember actually for just like a split second in my head thinking, that is so, I cannot believe. Tom regularly utilizes the celebrity angle to make a specific point, not just getting the largest star that he can. Like in the extremely viral moment one season later where the gorgeous MJ Rodriguez leaves in this like huge pink Cadillac car. That was in a show that was more widely talking about transgendered aspirations. Celebrities sort of become part of the storytelling of the house. And I know a lot of people are already kind of screaming at their phones being like, wait, I know one, the $3,000 Balenciaga trash bag. Or wait, even better, the shoe, the torn up shoe thing. Okay, this is where our definition requires a little bit of nuance. Both of those things, one of them did actually start on the runway, but neither of these really were runway gimmicks. These were things that mostly were living on your Instagram feed as product shots. And however we're defining runway gimmicks, they need to be something that live on the runway first. And again, while the trash bag was something that appeared in the runway show first, the real gimmick gimmick of that show was the huge indoor snowstorm, which was real fake snow, by the way. It was like freezing cold in that dome. So things like that. The flooded room for Balenciaga would be a good example of a runway gimmick. The massive mud pit that apparently we learned recently from that New Yorker article that apparently this made the room smell just terrible. No way around it. You want the mud, it's coming with a smell. And then there's Colum Delane of KidSuper, who seems to have been brought to the industry as an avatar of chaos to shake things up. Besides a host of pretty awesome short films, they did a live, real, actual art auction where real money was being bid on real paintings.
1,000 is bid. We're at $2,000 on my right. I'll take a bid of 3,000.
They did a live comedy show where comedians were given a single look from the collection and then 2 minutes to make people laugh.
People are rude in France, man. I said hello to a guy. He said no.
They also made the only reality show that I've ever actually enjoyed watching, where they asked people what they wanted to do before they died and then just took them and did the thing that they wanted to do. Like, they took a bunch of people skydiving. There was a mother and son that said they really wanted to go to Paris, so they took them to Paris. Somebody wanted to climb a mountain, and so they climbed a mountain, and then she wanted to sing at the top, so they were like, that sounds great. I interviewed Colum after his live art auction show, and what he said was this.
Then I went to 2 fashion shows in Milan, which were the first time I ever went to fashion shows, and I sat there and I was like, this is the worst thing ever. I want to participate.
Oh, come on.
Harsh but fair. There's so many more. I mean, Doublet hosted a summer runway show in sweltering Paris heat while simulating a thick snowstorm out of biodegradable confetti. Gucci found an army, apparently, of identical twins to walk their show. I don't know if you know this or not, but we recently released a damn movie. I went to Paris for Fashion Week. We covered an enormous quantity of shows, and all of those shows are covered in a 90-minute Paris Fashion Week video. I'm extremely proud of it. Listen, folks, doing coverage like that takes a lot of money and an enormous amount of resources. Like, I cannot tell you how many hundreds of emails get sent every Fashion Week in order to make this shit happen. I don't feel like anybody else, any other channel, any other publication, I don't feel like any of them offer coverage like this. And I need your help. But I only need your help if this is true. If you feel like you receive real value from this channel, if you feel like there's real benefit that you get to your life, if you get to tell a cool story at a party, if you've cited this channel in a paper that you've written for school, if you feel like you did better on a job application because you quoted something that I said in a video, these are all ways that this channel could be benefiting your life. If you do get benefit, but I ask that you take a second, go over to our Patreon and sign up for the amount that you believe reflects the amount of value that you get out of this channel. If you've watched this part of it, I'm really appreciative to you. If you haven't, skip forward, so I'll tell you a really funny story. It is unbelievably common for people to be invited to runway shows and then just sleep in and not go to them, which to me seems like, you fucking crazy person. And then all these kids are like, I would give one of my family members' vital organs to go to a runway show, any runway show, and you slept in? How dare you? Crazy. So insane. Okay, so example time is done. Let's come back to the center of the video and actually talk about these things. It's important to remember that the audience for new designers used to just be the fashion elite. Like, if you were a new designer showing up to Paris, ultimately you were there to impress Andre Leon Talley, Kathy Horan, Susie Minkes, Tim Blanks, which, by the way, Kathy, Tim, Susie, if you're watching this, I love you so much. You're my heroes. R.I.P. Andre the Goat, my other hero. But because that audience of fashion elites were themselves pretty conservative people, the gimmicks that new designers were trying to kind of get noticed were also very conservative gimmicks. Like, for example, Martin Margiela, in his early runway shows, he wasn't on the calendar at first, but his first calendared Paris Fashion Week show took place in a playground that was up in the suburbs of Paris. So all of the normal fashion shows in Paris took place in one spot. It was these big tents that were built near the Louvre in the center of Paris. Everybody showed there, but Martin was like, I'm gonna show way up here in Paris. And just the location, just the fact that this took place on dirt instead of a formal runway, like on a stage and stuff, that was a runway gimmick. There was also the thing with the kids, but that wasn't planned. It was just sort of an organic thing that happened, so we won't count that. But literally the planned gimmick for this show was that it was like, oh, this will be like so edgy that we're just doing it on the ground. Okay, so that was in the past. Now the audience is everyone. Ultimately, what these designers are doing when they incorporate these gimmicks in there is that they're competing for time on your phone screen. So I know that some of these gimmicks are kind of annoying, but in the case of smaller designers, I don't know. I at least get it. I understand why they're doing it. It is so hard to get noticed by anyone in Paris Fashion Week if you're not already a really established name. Just speaking from experience here, I have started going to Paris Fashion Week the last year. I've been to 4 seasons so far, maybe 5, 4. I've been to 4. And I love the designer Mame Kuraguchi. She's a Japanese designer. She doesn't do any runway gimmicks at all. I love her work. If I tried to make a video that was just called The Genius of Mame Kuraguchi, guess how many views that would get? I mean, they're quality clothes. She does really good storytelling in what she does. She makes excellent high quality stuff. The product looks great. Everything about Mame Kuraguchi is wonderful. That video might, we average like 20 to 22,000 views. That video might get 6,000 maybe. The numbers just support the idea that you all, the audience, just doesn't care about any fashion designer that they're not already extremely familiar with. So what the fuck are they supposed to do to get your attention? So again, I'm not going to defend any runway gimmicks that are just gimmicks for gimmicks' sake, but I do, I guess, want it out there in the world that I at least understand why some designers feel like that needs to happen, because there's just no other way to get anybody's attention. But now we get to talk about runway gimmicks that actually are good and useful and awesome. Because yes, I do believe that fashion should, in the end, be about clothes. Fashion people are naturally extra people. I mean, I've been working in the industry for 5 years, and I've never met someone who self-described themselves as the popular kid. I mean, the whole industry is filled with adults who were once musical theater nerds, gamers, and kids who had created way too much backstory for their Bratz dolls. We like a bit of drama in things. We like doing spice and pizzazz. And I understand when folks see these runway gimmicks and worry that attention is being drawn away from the art of making innovative, beautiful clothes. I understand that. But I have great news here. I think we can take these runway gimmicks and we can separate them into the 2 categories that we separate all art into. Good art, bad art. I mean, if we pitch this back to the one fashion runway gimmick that is most entrenched in everyone's mind, we can see an example of a good fashion gimmick. And that was McQueen's spray paint dress. This was a huge moment. I mean, we actually did like a death match fashion bracket thing of like the best runway look of all time just for fun. And this was the top look out of all of it. It was like a 128 like look matchup, and this was the #1 look. And to be frank, y'all, if this was happening today, and I mean the Coperni dress is pretty clearly just based off of this. But if someone did this today, I think people would be saying that it's gimmicky and not so awesome. Do I like this? Yeah, I like it for what it is. Is this mind-blowing and just like, oh my gosh, this look alone is just the pinnacle of fashion? No, of course it's not. Lee McQueen would say this is not the pinnacle of fashion. It was a gimmick. They did a really simplistic dress. I mean, is that a structured dress? Yes, it is. That's not an easy dress to make. But is this like the best thing McQueen's ever made? No, of course it's not. The thing that made this important was that it was this combination of like human and machine and these like kind of horror elements that Alexander McQueen pioneered in fashion. There were a lot of things that made this look more than the sum of their parts. And that's kind of what a gimmick is. There are other outstanding examples of fashion gimmicks that we as an industry would be so much worse off if we did not have. Hussein Chalayan is the king of using gimmicks in a purposeful, meaningful way that just ended up being so beautiful. I mean, this show, for example, like, I mean, I'm marrying an immigrant kid. Like, for immigrants, looking at stuff like this is like, kind of like impactful, because this is about people who are having to flee their country because of bad circumstances, just taking the things that are around them, putting them on their backs and hoping that things work out on the road, getting to a place that's safe. There are other examples where Hussein Chalayan spent a number of seasons building on this idea of the symbol of the, it's a siren. There were a number of other seasons where Hussein Chalayan was continuously building on this symbol of the airplane and kind of all of the things in his mind that meant to him. He was able to demonstrate a lot of this point through these incredible dresses that would transform on the runway in front of everyone. Iris van Herpen is another example where we have the end result that does, you know, if this was just sitting there on its own, it kind of looks like a gimmick. But then if you watch any of her making of videos, you quickly find that this was a just incredible amount of labor that went into it. First of all, this is by no means an easy thing to do, but also that it plays into the themes of the larger runway, and it demonstrates it in this majorly impactful, like, pinnacle moment of the runway show. And we're not going to go back through all of the runway gimmicks that we talked about in the first half of this video. Honestly, I want you all to talk about those in the comments. So yeah, with all that in mind, I really would love to hear what everybody thinks about fashion runway gimmicks. What are some gimmicks that you actually think are pretty useful for the storytelling of that brand? Which ones are just kind of gimmicks that are just gimmicks to get people's attention, etc., etc.